All right. Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for coming out to watch our first webinar on Your Guide to Florida Long-Term Care Medicaid. My name is Rep. DeLoach. I'm the State Planning Board Certified Elder Law Attorney at the law firm of DeLoach Officer and Cabonis. And it's great to have you here. And we used to do live seminars pre-COVID. It's great to get started back again with doing webinars and seminars to help educate people going through maybe difficult times with themselves or thinking about their own potential long-term care options. There's a lot of difficult information to get to. There's a lot of bad information that's out there. And it's our guide with this webinar to help figure out what Medicaid, if at all, could do to help you and your family out. So when I think about all the things that we go through as we age, I'm going to share what I hope as I age. I hope, is my hope, that I want to live a nice, long, healthy life. I want to stay at home and live independently for as long as I can. I want to stay home and live independently as I age. I want to live healthy, of course. And then one day, I want to not wake up one morning. I want to go to sleep at night and pass away calmly and peacefully in my sleep. Hopefully, be there with my beloved wife. And but ultimately, I want to live a nice long life and live healthy and not wake up one day. And I've had a lot of people say that as well. I've never had anyone disagree with that concept. Mostly, really, what I want to do is I want to skip the downhill slide that comes with aging. I know all of us really want to do that, but we really want to skip, falls and hip breaks, and we want to skip dementia. We want to skip, Parkinson's or ALS. All these different things can affect our ability to live independently. So we know that we want to do that. That's what I hope. That's what my clients hope. That's what the children of our clients hope. This is what we all really want. But what we're here today to talk about is things, what happens if this doesn't happen to us and we start to have issues if we cannot live independently at home while we age. So today's agenda is I want to talk about what even is long-term care, who will need long-term care, how much will long-term care cost, how will Medicaid help pay for long-term care, VA benefits, veterans benefits, how that can help pay for long-term care. And we'll talk about some Medicaid asset protection planning aspects that may come along with things. And then we're going to have a short Q&A after all this is done. So you on your screen in front of you, which at the bottom, you should be able to type questions in the chat. We'll be able to take a few questions at the end of the seminar. So obviously, if there's anything I don't cover, maybe it'll come up in the next few slides, but also just keep notes, things that you may be able to come to mind, and maybe we can be able to answer them by typing the question into the Zoom format here. So why do I know these things? Well, I've been practicing law for 24 years, almost 25 years now, and I'm a board certified specialist by the Florida Bar. So basically, after practicing law for 5 years, you can sit for another bar exam and you become an expert. Once you pass that, you go through peer review, another wonderfully difficult exam. And so I can now consider myself a specialist or an expert in elder law. We've done thousands of Medicaid applications at our office. We have a large team to help our clients out. And I'm also a part of the fabulous law firm at DeLoach Officer and Cabonis, founded by my father back in 1976. So I'm part of a legacy of wonderful attorneys, and I get to do what I want. I get to do what I want, helping people through difficult times. And I get to do wills, trusts, powers of attorney. I get to do elder law, and I help to navigate people through the difficult aspects of the aging process. So we're going to take a time here and say, what even is long-term care? What is long-term care? Because we want to live as independently as we can for as long as we can, but there's a point in our life where we need long-term care. And long-term care is mostly helping out with your activities of daily living. And you as a human being do these things. A fully functional human being does all the activities of daily living, are known as the ADLs. You do all these things by yourself. But as we age or go through a disease process, we will likely need some type of help with our long-term care and our ADLs, the activities of daily living. And then roughly there's 6 activities of daily living: transferring, continence, toileting, bathing, dressing, and eating. So these are the 6 activities of daily living. And if you need help with 2 of the 6 of the activities of daily living, then you're probably going to need what we roughly define as long-term care. So you need help with your ADLs, probably 2 of the 6 of the ADLs, then you're going to need some form of long-term care. Or alternatively, or together, if you need long-term care, if you have a cognitive impairment. So you may be able to do all the ADLs by yourself, but you're not going to be safe at home alone due to a cognitive impairment such as Alzheimer's, dementia, or any other aspect of dealing with the aging process where you don't have your cognitive abilities, where you can't be safe at home. Then you're also going to be needing long-term care. So one of the questions we have is, will you need long-term care? And statistically, what the statistics basically say is that 73% of all people over age 65 will need some type of long-term care. The average length of needing long-term care is roughly 3 years. And roughly 20% of the people who do need long-term care will need it over 5 years. So will you need long-term care? Well, we don't really know, of course, but statistically, 3 out of 4 of us are need some type of long-term care before we die. And another kind of depressing statistic, but ultimately is 50% of people over age 80 are going to develop some form of dementia, some form of cognitive impairment before we pass away. So will you need long-term care? We certainly hope not. I certainly hope not. But effectively, statistically, most of us will need long-term care before we pass away. Now, what we all know is that what is the cost of long-term care? And the cost of long-term care is going to be, as we can imagine, fairly expensive. Uh, Basically, there's a home health care. Cost of long-term care can be $25 to $30 an hour. It can be fairly expensive. So we all want to stay at home as we age, but you may not be able to do that. But you also need long-term care, and you can get care at home. And an example is a family. We've got a family member that needs long-term care at home, and it's fairly expensive. It can be over $10,000 a month to have a live-in aide help out a family member. So it can be fairly expensive if you want to stay home as we age, because you're needing home health care to help out with the cost of long-term care. Now, the assisted living facility, if you can't be home and you need help in an assisted living facility, then that's probably going to be roughly between $3,000 to $6,000 a month. If you need a dementia care assisted living facility, that's probably going to be $4,000 to $8,000 a month. And if we really need the worst, most difficult type of care, we need to stay in a nursing home, that's going to be roughly $10,000 to $12,000 a month. So as we can imagine, the more help we need, the more expensive it's going to be. So we can roughly say, of course, long-term care is going to be expensive for most of us. Now, long-term care in the community, again, we mostly want to stay at home while we age, but a great percentage of us, if we don't have the ability to pay for our long-term care at home, getting private in-home care, then we may need long-term care in the community. And long-term care in the community is if you're not safe at home and or cannot afford private pay for your home care, you may need community placement. And we've already mentioned a little bit about this, but there's the assisted living facility. That's again roughly $3,000 to $6,000 per month. This is you have your own private apartment for the most part, and it pays for your food, medication management, and some assistance with your activities of daily living. But if you need more help, or if you, and I say this, mostly be able to get out of bed and you're not that medically fragile, but it's a nice place that you can be in the right situation. If you need more help than a regular assisted living facility provide, that's a memory care assisted living facility. So that may be a secure dementia unit for the most part. There's many assisted living facilities that specialize in dementia care, and that's going to be more expensive. Basically, it's for those who may be exit seeking or may be needing more help than what a regular assisted living facility can provide. And then finally, there's the nursing home. And the nursing home, also known as a skilled nursing facility, known as a SNF in our world, a skilled nursing facility. But for those who are medically fragile, require 24/7 nursing, require a 2-person lift to get out of bed and more. So as we go downhill and we're not able to stay at home for various reasons, then there's the assisted living facility, then there's the dementia care facility, the memory care facility, then ultimately there's the nursing home. And most of the time, when families come in to see me and they're talking about this, they're thrown into the situation with their loved one trying to figure it out. You, me, mom, dad, all of us. We want to live at home while for the rest of our life and not wake up that one day. But as we age or go through the disease process, we may need care in a long-term care facility. And the families are all trying to figure out what's the difference between a dementia care facility and a regular assisted living facility or a nursing home or all this kind of stuff. So roughly kind of help educate part of this is that what does it look like if we're not able to stay at home? So the next question we have is, does Medicare pay for long-term care? And I think most of us are going to know the answer to this, but we're going to mostly say the answer is no. Medicare does not pay for our long-term care. Medicare and or HMOs, but if you're over age 65 and you're getting an HMO, but these are health insurance. And health insurance in our country is simply not long-term care. So Medicare is health insurance. It does not pay for long-term care at all. But what happens is people get a little bit confused is we're living our life and we have a problem and we fall, for instance, and have to go to the hospital. And Medicare does pay for rehabilitative care. And rehabilitative care, what Medicare will pay for after a 3-day hospital stay, then it'll pay for care and rehab. And it's usually maybe after a fall, after a stroke, we've fallen and broken our hip, for instance. But Medicare does pay for rehabilitative care, but it pays for only up to 100 days of rehab in a skilled nursing facility. So Medicare does not pay for long-term care. What it does do is it pays for rehab to try to get you stronger after a 3-day hospital stay. But there are also co-pays of days 21 through 100 of $200 a day. So, effectively Medicare pays for the first 20 days, and then days 21 through 100, there may be a copay unless you have a Medigap insurance policy. And then effectively it's up to 100 days. The reality is most people rarely, if ever, get 100 days after this. But again, it's you, me, mom, we're living our life, we're trying to stay at home as we age, but something happens where we can't, where a medically disruptive event occurs very frequently. It's after a fall, it's after a stroke, some type of situation that occurs where we have a hospital stay. From the hospital stay, we'll go out to rehab. Medicare does help pay for rehab, but it has some limitations and it's only up to 100 days. But again, most people never ever get close to 100 days because Medicare is only there to pay for you to get stronger. And then that's going to end up being, once you get as strong as you're going to get, then a rehab, Medicare is going to stop paying for your stay in the skilled nursing facility. So after that, we figured out, all right, what are the ways to pay for long-term care? And the ways to pay for long-term care is self-pay. Obviously, there's some of us that have enough money where the cost of long-term care is not going to be a situation for them. So just pay out of your pocket. So those who are wealthy enough to be able to afford it, you self-pay for your long-term care. There's also your own money. Then the reality is there's long-term care insurance. There's long-term care insurance products that can help pay for your long-term care. So it's not just out of your own pocket, but you can prepay for your own long-term care with insurance products. We'll talk a little bit about that. After self-pay, there's government benefits, VA, which we'll touch on a little bit, and then long-term care Medicaid. And ultimately, there's a combination of all of them. So there are certain situations where you can get VA benefits, where you can get Medicaid benefits. You may be able to have some of your own money set aside for your care. There's lots of different combinations of paying for your long-term care because we already know long-term care is expensive. So the next question is, does Medicaid pay for your long-term care? And of course, Medicaid is going to be one of our major topics of discussion today. So does Medicaid pay for long-term care? The answer is maybe. So Medicaid will pay for your care if you're in the nursing home. So none of us ever really want to be in the nursing home, but if we have to be in the nursing home and we qualify for Medicaid, essentially Medicaid will be there to pay for our care in the nursing home. It pays for a semi-private room and it is subject to room availability. In Pinellas County, there are 83 nursing homes, and all of the nursing homes in Pinellas County accept Medicaid. So we have 100% Medicaid acceptance in Pinellas County, although some facilities may not have room availability due to their own census. But if you end up in the nursing home and you qualify for Medicaid, effectively Medicaid is going to pay for your care. May not pay for your care in the exact facility of your choice, but effectively Medicaid is going to be there to pay for your care. So then why does Medicaid as a maybe? Is Medicaid may pay for your care in assisted living or in-home care. So definitely Medicaid is there to pay for our care in the nursing home again. And but it's a little bit more of a maybe, or of a lot more of a maybe if you're in assisted living or trying to get Medicare in home. There are strict financial rules to access Medicaid, which we're going to take our time and go over. And Medicaid does not dictate, I want to say this is Medicaid does not dictate where you get your care, but the facility must accept Medicaid. So people say, well, will the state of Florida decide where mom gets her care? She has to be in a nursing home. No, the state of Florida does not care as long as the facility accepts Medicaid, and that's going to be very important as part of all of this. So Medicaid does have the program, and all this is long-term care Medicaid, but essentially there's home and community-based Medicaid for assisted living facility or in-home care. The financial requirements are all going to be the same, but HCBS Medicaid is very similar, not quite the same as Medicaid for the nursing home, but Medicaid is not only for the nursing home, but Medicaid, the HCBS, Home and Community-Based Services Program, can help pay for your care for the assisted living facility or for in-home care. Again, it's the same financial requirements as getting long-term care we're going to go for. But the assisted living facility provides roughly a subsidy of about $1,200 to $1,600 a month to pay for the assisted living facility. If we did our math and the assisted living facility costs $6,000 a month, then Medicaid is helpful to pay for that, but that's not a lot of money if you have low income and lower resources. But also Medicaid can help pay for in-home care, but the care is not very extensive and may be able to pay for roughly 20 hours of in-home care per week, which is not a lot, especially if your loved one has dementia, or if they're a fall risk or they couldn't be safe at home. Then Medicaid is not very good at paying for in-home care or for the assisted living facility, but it is helpful in certain situations. Ultimately, there's a wait list to get maybe community-based services Medicaid, and there's a triage process for healthcare before we even get to the financial test. And we're going to get to the financial test next. But effectively, if this means this, if you end up in the nursing home and you qualify for Medicaid financially and you apply for Medicaid, you're generally going to get Medicaid. But if you get in the assisted living facility and you qualify for Medicaid financially, there's no guarantee that you're going to get onto Medicaid because there's a wait list that takes the sickest people first. So it's not based upon finances in the home and community-based services world. It's going to be based on your home health care tests, and they triage you for your home health care needs. So most of us know that Medicaid has asset tests. Medicaid is a needs-based government program. So you're only going to qualify for Medicaid if you are, qualify financially. So Medicaid has an asset test. And the asset test is looks at countable assets, as you're not going to be eligible for Medicaid unless your assets are less than around $150,000 for a married couple or $2,000 for a single person. Now, when I used to give these seminars live, most people would kind of gasp. They go, geez, the couple's allowed to have $150,000 in assets, but it's only $2,000 in assets for a single person. And that's of course accurate. What they do basically says if a single person is only allowed to have $2,000, but they'd give, if a married couple and one person is trying to go onto Medicaid, they give the spouse at home. In our world, we call them the community spouse. They give them around $150,000 in assets they're allowed to have, so the spouse at home doesn't go broke. And it's going to be countable assets. And countable assets in our world includes bank accounts, stocks, cash value of life insurance policy, more or less almost anything you own, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, etc. So that's going to be an asset that will create issues for you if you're looking for Medicaid. It also includes joint bank accounts with family members. Sometimes people end up saying, well, geez, I'm on mom's bank account. Mom's got $50,000 in the bank. Is half of that money mine? And the basic answer is no. Unless you can show that you contributed your money to that account, it's all going to be considered mom's money as well. So again, Medicaid is not going to pay for your care unless you qualify financially. Now, importantly, Medicaid excludes assets. And if you're married, you have the home value doesn't matter. You could have a $2 million home, for instance. and you could qualify for Medicaid for a married couple. But if you're a single person, your home's only allowed to be up to $688,000. Yeah, that's still a pretty high level for most of us, even with the rising housing values we've had in Pinellas County. But effectively, you're not allowed to get Medicaid if your home value exceeds $688,000 for a single person. Again, it doesn't matter for a married couple. So again, Medicaid will not pay for your care if your assets exceed this. And you're also allowed to have one car and barrel accounts as well. Income and Medicaid, the income for Medicaid rules get kind of complicated in certain situations. And they have the first thing is a very stupid rule, but if your gross income exceeds $2,742 per month, then you're not going to be eligible for long-term care Medicaid. Now, there's a legal way around that us attorneys use, but effectively there is an income cap for Medicaid because we create what's called a qualified income trust if your income exceeds the cap. Now, the at-home spouse is allowed to have an unlimited amount of income. So you could have the spouse, for instance, who had to be in the nursing home and their income is $1,000 a month. But if there's a spouse at home, their income is $5,000 a month. That's just fine. The at-home spouse's income does not matter for Medicaid purposes. Interestingly, and this is very important, in most situations, IRAs are generally considered income for Medicaid purposes and not assets. So there are some limitations to that rule, but effectively, IRAs do not appear in the asset column for Medicaid purposes. IRAs generally include the income column for Medicaid purposes. Most of us, by the time we're age 72, are taking our required minimum distributions, our RMDs. So as long as you're taking out your RMDs, that is going to be considered income for Medicaid purposes. And the value of your IRA, you could have a $200,000 IRA, and that would not be a countable asset for Medicaid purposes as long as you're taking the RMDs out. That's going to be counted as income, not as an asset. Now, the patient responsibility is important. A single person, their income must get paid to the nursing home, for instance. So if your income is whether it's $1,000 a month or $5,000 a month, if you're on Medicaid, your income must go to the nursing home and you get to keep a whopping $160 per month. Now, realistically, if you're in the nursing home, your income must get paid to the facility. That's the copay. You get to keep $160 a month, as you said, but the facility is going to pay for all your medical costs. You're going to have everything paid for, except for maybe your toothpaste, toothbrushes, things like that. So effectively, you get to keep $160 a month. But if you're in the nursing home, a single person on Medicaid, then that's a very difficult. Then all their income must go to the nursing home effectively. Now it's a little bit different, and it's really difficult to explain how if one spouse is at home. So it's difficult, but we have got a book that I'm going to share with you later on that explains how the spouse at home income work. It's fairly complicated, honestly. So Medicaid in your homestead. And when we get involved in these situations, people always think about their homestead. Is Medicaid going to take my home? What if I die? Is Medicaid now going to take my home? All these different things. So Medicaid and homestead is a very important topic because that's usually the number one asset that we have as we grow older. And frankly, most of us would want to leave that to our families and not leave it to the state of Florida. But effectively, your home is protected from Medicaid no matter how long you live in the nursing home, you're not able to live there. So if you have to move out of your home for healthcare purposes, your home is still not going to be an asset for Medicaid purposes. So you're living at home, you have a stroke, you can't live there, and even if you have to live in the nursing home for 5 years, your home is still your protected homestead and will not be a countable asset for Medicaid purposes. Further, Medicaid cannot take the home upon your death. Now, there are some certain limited circumstances where Medicaid does have a claim in your estate where they could take it, but they're very few and far between. But effectively, Medicaid can't take your home upon your death. And maybe some limited circumstances on there, but Medicaid can't take the home upon your death. We can say that renting the home is difficult or problematic because it interacts with Medicaid in a negative way in certain ways, but effectively renting the home is possible. I always end up described as time is difficult because it's difficult for families because if you're in the nursing home, for instance, and all of your income must go to the nursing home as a single person and you're on Medicaid, then you can't pay for there's Medicaid does not allow you to keep your income to pay for the cost of the home. So the family's going to have to look after the home. They may have to pay any mortgage on the home. They might end up having to pay insurance, taxes, maintenance, etc. So as time goes on, Medicaid and the homestead is problematic. We're just going to end up saying there are legal ways to sell and protect the proceeds, but effectively, the main thing you need to know is you're allowed to own the home. Medicaid's not going to take it away from you, but it's problematic in certain areas. Gifting in Medicaid. Now, most of us have heard this rule, but the real thing about Medicaid is Medicaid does not want us to give our money away in order to get on to Medicaid. Most of us are familiar with what we call the 5-year look back period, but effectively, you can't give your money, your assets away within 5 years of applying for Medicaid. And if you did that, then it's going to cause a Medicaid transfer penalty. So effectively, you can't give your money away if you want to protect it, quote unquote, protect it from the nursing home. Assets simply cannot be gifted away. There may be certain limited circumstances, there are exceptions to that rule, but you can't give your money away within 5 years of the Medicaid application. Now, sometimes people say, and had this happen a number of different times, well, aren't I allowed to give away $17,000 per year? And under the federal estate and gift tax rules, you're allowed to give away $17,000 per year. That will not cause any tax consequences for you. Most of us don't even have that as a problem unless your assets exceed $12 million. But you're not allowed to give $17,000 a year from Medicaid. Medicaid does not care about the federal estate and gift tax rules. You cannot give away $17,000 per year. There are no exceptions for the gifting rules. So Medicaid knows that. Just don't try giving your money away if you're getting sick. So we're going to briefly touch upon Veterans Administration and long-term care. So, there's a great focus on what Medicaid can provide for our care. We're going to give some examples of that later on and how it all works. But effectively, the veteran VA has the ability to help out for those who pay for long-term care. And there is a cash benefit for long-term care for veterans who qualify. So if the veteran or the surviving spouse of a veteran had 90 plus days of active duty service, had service in a wartime period, only one a day which qualifies. You could have joined the service and literally on the last day of the war, and you could qualify as active duty there. And you had a discharge that was other than dishonorable. Any discharge other than dishonorable, then the VA can help pay for the cost of long-term care. So this is for the veteran or the veteran surviving spouse. There's an application process. There's an asset limitation of here. They're kind of more generous of an asset limitation of around $140,000. This goes up every year, just like with Medicaid. But if the assets are less than $140,000, then the VA can help pay for the veteran and the surviving spouse of a wartime veteran. And basically, they'll pay based upon high ongoing medical needs, really such as assisted living, such as in-home care. It's not really help paying for the cost of a nursing home because the nursing home is just so darn expensive. If the nursing home is $12,000 a month, the VA may be help pay for that, but effectively it's roughly between $2,300 a month for a married veteran who needs long-term care, down to around $1,400 a month for the surviving spouse of a wartime veteran. But realistically, $1,400 a month can be a lot of money to help pay for an assisted living facility. If the surviving spouse had $3,000 of income and they're in the assisted living facility and the assets were less than $140,000, then $1,400 a month could be a very helpful to paying for someone's long-term care. So even though the seminar is titled, of course, for Medicaid for long-term care, the VA benefits can be very helpful to people in the right situation. Roughly speaking, we're going to say mostly helpful to pay for the assisted living for in-home care, not really that helpful to pay for the nursing home, mostly just because the nursing home is just so gosh darn expensive. So crisis Medicaid planning. We already said that we can't give away money in order to quote unquote protect the money from the nursing home. But that doesn't mean that crisis Medicaid planning is not available. So here's an example. This is kind of our typical client, really. Mary is age 90 and needing more help at home. And this could be you, this could be me at some point in my life, but we're all living at home, trying to stay there and not wake up that one day. But as we, of course, get older, we're going to start slowing down. And Mary is age 90 and needs more help at home. But Mary falls and goes to the hospital. And we already know this, after a 3-day qualifying stay in the hospital, what happens is she's gotten weaker in the hospital bed, or maybe she's had a hip fracture and she needs to get rehab. So after this, our client Mary goes out to the rehab facility, and Medicare, as we already know, pays for up to 100 days. Rarely does it, but ultimately Medicare pays for up to 100 days. But what happens when rehab ends? Now, we know that Mary wants to go home. We'd all want to go home. But effectively, there's going to be three choices at this point. When rehab ends, when Medicare stops paying, what are our choices? Ultimately, there's three main choices. Is there's going to be home care? Can Mary go home and get home care? Will Mary have to go out to the assisted living facility, or will the nursing home? Will she have to pay for the nursing home? She'll have to stay there. Maybe she's got a hip fracture and she's going to be immobile, and that may be the only place that she may be able to stay. But after she's had a rehab stay and Medicare is into paying for it, again, three choices: go home, go to assisted living, or must stay in the nursing home for long-term care. And ultimately, we're thinking about this as, well, how is she going to end up paying for this? And Medicaid, we've already discussed, can help pay for the long-term care, but that's when we'd probably be looking to pay for in-home care, for assisted living, or Medicaid to pay for the nursing home. So Mary in long-term care. So here's a specific example of what we do on a daily basis. In our situation, again, Mary's health is deteriorated and she must stay in the nursing home, or maybe she could go out to the assisted living facility. In this situation here, Mary has a homestead and the home is worth less than $688,000. And let's just say in our situation, Mary's got $80,000 in the bank. But we know that if we don't do anything, Mary's money will disappear to the nursing home. Now, we always say this is that the nursing home doesn't take the money. The nursing home is just going to be very expensive, to the cost of $10,000 to $12,000 per month. So if we do nothing, then Mary will private pay for her nursing home care, and all that $80,000 will be gone in 6 to 7 months, and then she will be Medicaid eligible. So if we do nothing, her rent is going to be very expensive. But in this situation, there are legal things that can be done with an elder law attorney to help protect the assets. We can't give the money away, as we've already discussed, but we are legally able to pay a caregiver for help. In our world, we call this a personal services contract, but we can legally pay a caregiver to help Mary out, even though she's already in the nursing home. Family members or other trusted people may go to help Mary and check on her. And we do know the people that are in the nursing home that are in long-term care, the people that get the best care have someone coming in and checking on for advocating for them. And you are legally able to pay caregivers in advance to help you out. In our Medicaid world in Florida, we call this a personal services contract. Now, we've done this legally. We can, once we've paid the caregiver, we document all this to Medicaid, but Mary can now legally get Medicaid to help pay for the nursing home or pay for the assisted living facility. Or if we didn't do anything, all the money would disappear anyway. But this is legal a way to protect money aside, maybe for Mary's future costs, maybe to help pay for the assisted living facility, or maybe as a way to protect assets for an inheritance for the kids. It's just an example of how protecting assets from a crisis scenario works. Ultimately, there's many ways to protect assets, but you always do this with the advice of a good elder law attorney like our law firm. Now, here's an example of a married couple, and this is Bill and Doris. But Bill and Doris are going to be looking at crisis Medicaid planning too. But Bill and Doris, both 88 years old, are living at home. Their joint assets of around $300,000 in the bank account and CDs. They have a home worth $400,000. And Bill's income here is roughly $3,000 a month, while Doris's income is $1,500 a month. So they're doing well at home, but obviously they're getting older, and we're thinking about what would happen if something happened to one of them. But of course, Doris here in our situation is getting dementia, and Doris falls and breaks a hip. So Medicaid for Bill and Doris. In this situation, Doris has gone out to the hospital and she's in the nursing home. What if she had to stay in the nursing home, or maybe will the Medicaid help pay for the assisted living facility? In this situation is Bill and Doris already have $300,000 in assets. We know that roughly speaking, they're allowed to have $150,000. So they got $150,000 over assets, and Medicaid will not pay for Doris to be on long-term care because they've got all this money over the asset limit, about $150,000 over. And Bill was told he could only have $150,000 to qualify Doris for Medicaid. which is right. So Medicaid's only going to help step in to pay for long-term care when their joint assets are less than $150,000. But luckily, Bill has a good elder law attorney, and a good elder law attorney knows how to protect assets legally. And I'm going to give you a specific example. This is not in every situation that's available, but in our Medicaid world, I know how, as a great elder law attorney, I know how the legal loopholes work, and we know how to manipulate the system without giving the money away, but we can legally protect the assets. And in this situation, Bill can loan a trusted son or daughter, trusted family member. He can loan a structured promissory note to a trusted family member. And this loan of a promissory note, if structured the right way, then this will allow the asset to disappear from the $160,000 loan, will disappear from the asset column for Bill, and it will magically go away. It'll reappear in the income column, but that's not going to matter. We've already said that Bill's income does not affect Doris's ability to pay for long-term care. It's only Doris's income that counts. And effectively, a legal promissory note done with the advice of an elder law attorney can protect assets and get Doris on Medicaid rather than spending all that money or trying to give it away, which we can't do anyway. But this is a specific example of what an elder law attorney can legally do to protect assets when the assets are over the $150,000 mark. Well, we can say this is one of many strategies. There's lots of different ways to legally protect assets. We always say this legally. We had a client in earlier today that was explaining how to do something similar to this, and they said this is legal. I said, of course it's legal. I don't look good in orange. You don't look good in orange. None of us want to defraud the government. We're not going to help anyone do that. But we know the legal loopholes, how to protect assets from the nursing home. In order to manipulate the system, they hire us, a good elder law attorney. We know how to legally protect the assets and get Doris on Medicaid sooner rather than later without spending all of this money. Now, what if Mary or what if Doris wants to stay home? But effectively, it's this. Medicaid is not only helpful for the nursing home, but this is the easiest program to qualify for. Ironically, the nursing home, the place where none of us want to be, is the easiest program to qualify for. We end up in the nursing home again, we qualify for Medicaid, we apply for Medicaid, then we're going to get Medicaid for the most part, as we've already discussed. But Medicaid, again, can help with in-home care and assisted living facility where the financial requirements, again, are the same. But there's a wait list as well. So what I mean with this, if your loved one is in a healthcare situation, if they've gone downhill, they're in the nursing home, or you're looking to get Medicaid for the assisted living facility, meeting with an elder law attorney to help figure out how the wait list is going to work, how it all works together is just going to be very important. And again, I also mentioned this, but Medicaid provides only roughly a $1,600 a month, up to $1,600 a month estimated subsidy for the assisted living facility. And having a good elder law attorney is going to be vital to help maximize dollars, maximizing good care for Mary, for our loved one. Now, pre-planning for long-term care. What we've talked about at this point is really talked about what we call crisis Medicaid planning. It's we're living at home, we're trying to live our life, and then we have a medical emergency that may prevent us being able to live at home. So how do we pay for our long-term care? So that's called what we call effectively crisis Medicaid planning. But we're also, when I started doing these seminars years ago, what I realized is that many of the people coming to the seminar are not in a crisis mode, but they're thinking about, hey, I'm 70 years old, I'm 80 years old. Obviously, as we're all getting older, we're thinking about what should I do now to pay for my long-term care. So this is the situation where we're not in a crisis yet. We're not in the nursing home. We're not in assisted living, but we're thinking about, hey, how do I pay for long-term care? What if I got sick? What if my wife has got healthcare issues? What if she got sick? So this is pre-planning for long-term care. It's going to be this portion of things. Ultimately, pre-planning for long-term care is many of it in the seminar are thinking about what we do, not now again, but it's just preparing for many years from now. So what you should do now to help make sure you have the best estate plan, preserve your care options, and protect assets, maybe for inheritance purposes. We're not going to hide this, as many people say, hey, I want to make sure I've worked long and hard for all the money that I've accumulated. I want to make sure it all doesn't disappear to the cost of long-term care, and I'd like to preserve an inheritance to my children. And so these are things that we should consider doing now to help maximize your opportunities, maximize your estate plan, preserving your care options, and protecting assets, maybe for the kids if you want to. So pre-planning for long-term care. The basic thing you must do, the first thing you do is you always make sure you've got your estate planning done. So you always do your basic estate planning. So step 1A is making sure you've done your trust. Maybe you do a trust, most likely you do a trust to avoid probate upon your death, but you do your will, you do your power of attorney, you do a great durable power of attorney, you do a healthcare scenario, you live in will. So whatever we do for pre-planning for long-term care, the first step you do is make sure your estate plan is in order. And we always say it's always, always, always done by a good elder law attorney. All attorneys are not created equal. Don't go to a regular estate planning attorney. You don't go to the attorney down the street who does wills, divorces, criminal law, and personal injury. You go to a good elder law attorney to get your estate planning done, because the good elder law attorney is going to know how to legally manipulate the assets to prepare your documents in advance to help you and or your family legally protect money later on. The first step you always do is make sure your basic estate planning is done. And after that, you really have two choices. So you've done your will, you've sat down with a good elder law attorney, you've done a trust maybe, you've got your power of attorney, you've got all of that in place. So after you've done that and your estate plan is in place, you really have two choices to prepare for your long-term care. You have the ability to give money away to pay for long-term care 5 years before you get sick. We're going to talk about that. And ultimately, there's financial pre-planning. So we're going to touch on that as well. So after you've done your estate planning, you're thinking about what should I do now to further prepare for the cost of long-term care, is maybe there's gifting with irrevocable trust planning and financial pre-planning. And the first option we think about is gifting. And gifting here is going to be gifting before the 5-year Medicaid look back period. And most of the time, or frequently enough, there's irrevocable trust planning that is done instead of outright gift planning. So effectively, you give assets to an irrevocable trust that you're not in charge of. The assets are held in the trust for your lifetime. And upon your death, the children receive the assets as an inheritance, income tax free. So this is one example of what irrevocable trust planning is done before you get sick. So why gift planning? Effectively, you probably don't want to give away all your money before you get sick. And maybe there's tax reasons why you don't want to give away all your money. There's many reasons why you might not want to give away all of your money. But effectively, irrevocable trust planning is a wonderful thing in the right situation. So here's an example of gift planning. And Sally here is age 80, and she's in great health. So we don't expect that she's going to need long-term care in the next 5 years. She's in good health, and so she's just doing well as she ages. Now she's got about $500,000 in the bank, and she's got stocks, etc. So if she ended up in the nursing home, that's $500,000 that's there that is up for the paying for the cost of long-term care. And Sally here is kind of thinking, well, geez, I don't want all this to disappear to the cost of long-term care. Now she has trustworthy children, very, very importantly, and she's comfortable at this point in her life of giving up control of her assets. And in this situation, if for instance, Sally didn't have children that she trusted, or didn't even have children that she wanted to leave money to, really, Sally wouldn't even consider doing gift planning. This is a very limited situation, but Sally is in good health. She's got a lot of money. Maybe she would consider giving away. She's comfortable giving up control, and she has trustworthy children. There's very important facts that we would want to consider for Sally. But here, Sally would create an irrevocable trust where maybe she didn't give away all of her money into the trust, but she gave $400,000 in stock to the trust. She reserved some money for herself, so her own spending money. She retains the right to the income for the trust for the rest of her life. She's not in charge of the trust, but she named her a trustworthy son. But the money is held for her lifetime and then goes to the children tax-free upon her death. These irrevocable trusts are wonderful in the right situation that when Sally passes away, the trust is drafted so the assets get a step up in basis upon her passing. But effectively, the assets are protected from nursing home after 5 years. So we're getting ahead of the 5-year look back period by giving away maybe not all of someone's money, not all of Sally's money, but she's thinking about, hey, I'm 80 years old, I'm in good health. What if I had a stroke? What if I had a terrible downturn in health? I don't want it all to disappear to the cost of long-term care. So Sally would consider, with the help of a good elder law attorney, of placing the funds into an irrevocable trust very limited circumstances. But the assets are protected from Medicaid in 5 years, and then helps Medicaid, the VA, the Veterans Benefits has a 3-year look back period. So we can give away assets for 3 years for the VA, and again, 5 years for Medicaid purposes. So very limited circumstances. It makes sense in the right situation for Sally, but this is something that can be done in advance rather than just preparing for your will and trust and all that. Maybe you consider giving up control of your assets in limited situations. The other option for planning is financial pre-planning. And financial pre-planning is it's not a legal perspective, but you need to know that this is out there. Is financial planning instead of gift planning, is you have the ability to retain control of your assets, you receive a better choice of care, your government tax incentives for financial pre-planning. And effectively, what you want to do is you want to talk to a financial planner to learn about long-term care insurance. And we have financial planners that we refer to in our office. We don't do this ourselves. But if for the right person, probably ages between 60 and 80 that are in good health, you set aside some of your funds to pay for your long-term care through long-term care insurance products. And we're not just talking about the long-term care insurance that you pay $5,000 a year for instance. There are long-term care insurance products inside annuities and in life insurance products that have long-term care insurance riders inside of them. So an example of that is someone who is 65 years old in good health and worth a substantial amount of money. They might go to a financial planner and set aside $100,000 or $150,000 of their assets to pay for their future long-term care. So I want to say this is that our only option is not giving our money away, but there are financial planning options that, again, mostly between those people between the age of 60 and 80 that can take advantage of through financial incentives our government has put together. We don't do this here, but we refer out to good financial planners who know about these long-term care insurance products. So that is most of the presentation we've got here. Meet the elder law attorneys. Now, it is myself at the law firm, the fabulous looking fellow right there. Oh, good. I didn't wear that tie. I've got more than one bow tie. Also, we've got the attorney, Michelle Leonzo, who helps our law firm. Myself, we've got 2 offices here. We've got our office here in Seminole. We've been on the corner here for over 20 years. And we also have our newly opened law firm in Sun City, Sitter. And we've got attorney Michelle Leonzo is helping me out as well. So we've got 2 attorneys here that are able to help you out, to help serve you, help work with you and your family. So how can we help you? So effectively, we're here to discuss long-term strategies, whether we're thinking about for crisis planning, maybe your loved one's in a nursing home now, or maybe needing a nursing home or long-term care in the future. We talk about estate planning. Again, it's preparing for the future is probably the most important thing that you can do. We have 2 social workers on the staff that help out with care advocacy for our aging clients. And we're here to tell you, it's difficult to navigate the long-term care maze. And when your loved one is living, at home and then she falls or has a stroke or must be in the nursing home, it's so difficult to navigate the system. And you're essentially lost. The kids are lost trying to get good care for their mom and dad. The spouse at home, the spouse is trying to help navigate the care for their loved one. It's very difficult to navigate the long-term care maze. And that's why we have 2 social workers on staff to help navigate our clients through the difficult process of getting good long-term care for loved ones. Because believe me, it's difficult. We do long-term care crisis planning as well, of course, because we know the legal ways to quote unquote protect assets in order to make sure that all of your assets don't disappear to the cost of long-term care, whether it's in the nursing home or assisted living. Maybe we're not even trying to provide an inheritance for the kids. We're just trying to make sure that that all the care options are available, and we know how to effectively set money aside legally in our world in the right situation. And we say this, but also hear about what our actual clients from their experience of working with us. Please check out our online reviews. We've been doing this, like I said, a long time. We've got a great track record of helping good people in difficult situations. And we've got a lot of wonderful long-time online reviews for the people that have worked with us in the past. So how does this work? What we do is, for attending our seminar today, we are glad to schedule a 1-hour strategy session with an attorney via Zoom telephone call or in person. We're glad to sit down and review your options with you. And during this meeting, we will review your current estate plan. We will identify your specific concerns, and we're going to assess your needs, desire to protect assets. Now, I already said this, but sometimes people come in and say, well, I want to protect my assets from the nursing home. And I say, well, do you have any children that you're trying to protect assets for? And the basic answer is no, all my money's going to go to charity. Well, don't get me wrong, we don't need to protect assets from the nursing home in that situation because there's no one to protect assets for. But again, we're here to talk about your needs, your desires, your healthcare situation, review your estate plan, review your finances, and we're just going to assess the situation, what, if anything, needs to be done right now. Plus, we're going to answer all the questions you have about your unique situation. So at the end of our time together, you'll know what legal documents you need. You'll have a better understanding of the long-term care journey and what steps you'll need to take. You'll know the exact amount of your investment to achieve your goals. We would quote you a fee for any legal work that we would be doing. And you'll have peace of mind knowing that you took the correct steps to protect yourself and your loved ones. We've already talked about this, but it's what we have mostly or very frequently is the fear of the unknown. What if I can't stay home? What if I have to be in the nursing home? What if I'm already forgetful? What if I've got dementia? What do I do? Or what if my mom has dementia? So the reality is it's difficult to truly get good answers to help, but that's what our job here is to help figure out, hey, what's going on? What are the legal documents that are in place? What are things that you need to be concerned about with now? Because believe you me, is when you're in a situation like this and you're trying to navigate the system, people come out of the woodwork and tell you all kinds of crazy things. Oh, you should do this, or you should do that, or give all your money away, all this kind of stuff. But what you really need is the knowledge that you have a good elder law attorney and a good elder law team to help you figure out really what are your problems, what should be your concerns, what should you be doing right now. And once you know what you should be doing, you cut through all the misinformation that's out there, you're going to have peace of mind knowing you've done the right things and you've prepared for yourself, you've protected your assets, do whatever needs to be done to give you peace of mind knowing you've done the right things. So after our meeting, you'll decide if you want us to help any further. Maybe you don't need any help, but we will develop a plan with recommendations for your specific situation. We will prepare any legal documents. We will work to protect assets when appropriate and available. When we get hired in a situation like this, the elder is always our client. Mom and dad, the person in the nursing home, these are our clients. We're always going to make sure we're looking after our client, the elder. If we protect assets for the kids and inheritance, that's a side benefit. But effectively, our client is always going to be the elder. We're going to make sure that their assets are protected when appropriate and when legally available. And most importantly, of course, after our meeting, we will walk you through a process, whatever needs to be done to help out, whether we're in a crisis situation, whether we just need to review or tune up your estate planning documents, whatever we need to do, we're going to walk you through everything to make sure you're situated correctly. Again, we know there's a lot of misinformation out there. Not all attorneys are created equal, but we're here to help you decide if you're going to make the right decisions. So who is this for? Who is this for? Ultimately, it's for two groups of people. It's for those dealing with a loved one facing imminent long-term care. Maybe mom is at home, maybe she shouldn't be home, maybe the family doesn't know what to do. How do we get mom out of the home safely? Is she going to need to go to assisted living? What kind of facility is she going to go to? Can she go to a nursing home? Whatever it is, the family with a loved one is either in nursing home now or is facing imminent long-term care. And here, we must deal directly with the elder if they're competent or with the elder's power of attorney. So that's why we said earlier is we've got to make sure that the family has a good power of attorney in place, because this is what allows the family to hire an elder law attorney to legally protect assets in the right situation. So again, who is this for? It's two groups of people, those dealing with those facing imminent long-term care, and those looking to do pre-planning for their care. You're not likely, so in this situation, maybe you're not going to need long-term care within the next 5 years, but you want to make sure you've explored your options. The key is to review your current estate plan and see what changes should be made now. Again, preparing for that downturn in health, preparing for dementia, preparing for the stroke, preparing for the fall. What are your options that you need to do now and making sure we're pre-planning for that? I will say this, I mean, many of the people that are attending the seminar have already seen us within the past number of years. And I will say this, of course, the reality is that if you did your estate planning with us, your documents are going to be in pretty darn good shape. Maybe you've had some family member changes, maybe you've moved, maybe there's some little things that have come up. But what we see on a daily basis is a elder law attorney. I get to see a lot of other attorneys work. And I know that not all attorneys are created equal. And I know that because I see bad legal work all the time. So if you did not do your legal work, your will, trust, your power of attorney, if you didn't do that with a Florida attorney, and if you didn't do that with a good Florida elder law attorney like myself or like our law firm here, then your documents may not be that good. If you worked with us prior, then you're going to have some pretty darn good estate planning documents. Maybe some changes may need to be done, but effectively, we know you're really going to be prepared for the most part. So if you did your documents with us, then I'm going to be realistic. You're going to be doing pretty well. But again, if you've done your estate plan documents with another attorney and they don't specialize in elder law like we do, then we definitely would want to review your documents to make sure all your options are available for asset protection for the future. So what's the catch? So what's the catch here? The reality is there is no catch. What we want to do is we want to make sure you're prepared for the future. And the first step of solving a problem is knowing the problem's existence. And we know that we've got a problem as we're getting older, that we may need long-term care. So what should we be doing now to prepare for that? So our job here at DeLoach III Gabonis is to help make sure you're prepared for the future. So the catch is there is no catch. So, and we want you to book our information gathering session. At the end of our seminar, we're going to send you an email that you can book your information gathering session with us. You can be scheduled at chatwithdhc.com, and we would contact you. And once you fill out the information sheet, we will contact you, and we'll be glad to schedule the information session with you. And again, it's normally a $200 office consultation. We're going to charge only $100 for those who are able to attend. So remember, you'll know what estate planning documents you will need. You'll know what actions you need to take now, if any. You'll have peace of mind knowing that you and your loved ones will be better prepared for the challenges of tomorrow. And I'll say this, is that this offer is only valid for 60 days. So if you're watching this now, thank you for coming out. But if you would like to sign up for a free, for a $100 office consultation, we're glad to sit down together. We've got a lot of information that we'd want to gather to review your existing documents, to review your current healthcare situation, and to review your finances to help prepare you for the future. But this offer is limited time for 60 days for you to schedule your appointment with us for $100 off. So thank you very much. Thank you for attending. And we're glad to be here. But also we'll say is we are now time for our question and answer session. So if any questions have come up, let's see here. How do we bring up the questionnaire? All right, I've got my trust. See chat, hit escape. All right. Oh, there we are with the chats. So we had some questions come up here. I live in Fort Myers. Do you have a representative there who, if not, who do you recommend? Please reach out to us. Our law firm is able to help out people across the state of Florida. We can do Medicaid applications for anyone across the state of Florida. So sometimes there's limitations, but we're glad to help out anyone. If you're willing to drive up here, then we can help. If you're looking for care for your loved one in the Fort Myers area, then we can help out there as well. If not, then we do have some people, that we know across the state of Florida. The next question we have is for a woman who is in her late 80s and suffering with dementia and has about $70,000 in assets. Ooh, and already getting VA benefits. Good job. What can you do to make her eligible for Medicaid before all of her assets are completed? So Mark, you have a question there. Is you're doing good already. Thankfully, you've got the VA benefit. So, we've got a potential, we've got our elderly person here has income of $2,800. The reality is that Medicaid may be available, and we'd be glad to set up a consultation with you to review whether we would bring any value to the situation. So in particular, if we're looking for someone who is in her late 80s, what we're really looking for there is where is she receiving care, what are her care needs, and kind of really where is she in as far as her journey goes. But we're pretty sure that we can bring value to a situation, and she's entitled to Medicaid benefits and VA benefits at the same time in this certain limited circumstances. So great, good question. So next question is planning for long-term care costs. What is the difference between a revocable trust and an irrevocable trust? And that's a great question. Now, Jerry, in this question here, we're going to be given a seminar on estate planning, and we're getting that together. We'll be doing that in a couple of months. So we'll also be able to send you a link for that if you'd like to join. But effectively, a revocable living trust is a way of preparing your estate plan to avoid probate, but a revocable living trust is not an asset protection device. You retain control of your assets through a revocable living trust. So basically, it doesn't protect anything from the nursing home at all. So it's only irrevocable trust planning 5 years in advance that an irrevocable trust is helpful. So a good irrevocable trust may be important in the right situation or very important just to avoid probate, but it's not an asset protection device. I mean, if we'll go backwards to Mark, if your loved one is in a assisted living facility, she's very likely, we could get her onto Medicaid and get Medicaid too. Can I get a copy of this for my mom? She has trouble getting on Zoom. Yes, we're going to be sending everyone a link to this webinar, and you can share the link with anyone that you see, anyone that would help out with this. So thank you, Joe and or Connie. So we're going to be sending out a link after this. We're going to be, we've recorded the webinar, and so you can send it over to your loved one. How often should a will be reviewed aside from required changes? That's a good question. And effectively, a will may be good forever. Certain situations, your will says everything goes equally to my 3 kids without any changes to their family situation. In a simple situation, sometimes wills can be good for 50 years even. So it's not necessarily that wills need to be reviewed to a certain extent. It's more likely than not that powers of attorney and or trusts probably need to be updated more often than not. Dan, are there strategies for irrevocable trust if you don't have trusted children, but do have children who are not prudent financially? Dan, the answer is maybe. You always have to look for a trusted family member to protect assets for. So there may be other options we'd have to explore, but realistically, irrevocable trust planning is more likely than not advisable only in certain limited situations. Samuel has a question here on spousal refusal. Spousal refusal is a legal way to protect assets. My book goes into it in very certain circumstances. But if one spouse is at home and one spouse is in the nursing home, it's maybe possible through the technique known as spousal refusal to protect a lot of money so it doesn't get spent to the nursing home. Samuel, that's a very good question. We use spousal refusal in certain circumstances, and our book is going to get into more detail on that, so you'll be able to read up about that as well. Did I understand that Medicaid will only subsidize up to around $1,600 a month for memory care and assisted living? What happens? Who pays when the patient runs out of money or has no income at all? And here, anonymous attendee, it's the most difficult thing, and it's hard to harp on this enough or hard to mention it enough, but the most difficult thing to pay for in long-term care in the state of Florida isn't the nursing home. The most difficult thing to do is to pay for an assisted living facility, specifically memory care, because you hit the nail on the head. Is Medicaid only provides up to a $1,600 a month subsidy, and that's not enough. We said that some memory care facilities can exceed $7,000 a month. But what we can say is that Medicaid is going to be helpful, but also you may end up having to look for a less expensive facility. But you did figure that out, Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous attendee. Medicaid really can be limited for pay for assisted living facility because it's only that $1,600 a month limit. Is there a monetary limit that can go in a personal service contract? Yes, there's a monetary limit. We said there are legal ways to protect assets. It has to be reasonable, and an elder law attorney can help protect that. It may be legally available to protect lots of money, but effectively it's not going to be, we can describe as an unlimited amount of money. All right, good. Oh, got someone who's thanking me for the session. Thank you, Dorothy, for the session. So, all right, golly, thanks, Stephen, and thanks, Anne Marie. It's great to hear from you. Oh, thank you, Samuel. Thank you. Um, so I'll go to one more question, Fabian. I'm 70 years old. I've been starting to look into independent living assisted living facilities. I'm in very good health, but I am afraid I will run out of money as the price is exorbitant. Shall I continue to look or wait till something happened to my health? Hopefully not for a long time. And Fabian, what we really want to do is just make sure your estate plan is in order. So you probably, in a situation like that, you probably would not be looking at irrevocable trust planning, but you definitely look at your assets, look at your finances, and make sure your estate plan is in order. That's probably the most important thing that you would need to do at this time. So at this point, thank you for everyone that's attended. I think I've got some family members and my staff in the audience. And thank you for all the thanks. And thank you very much. This is my first seminar again back after a absence since the start of COVID. So it's been over 3 years. So we're glad to have everyone here. Thank you for your input. We're going to be sending you a copy of my book. We are going to be sending you a free download for this. If you would like to schedule your information gathering session, we'd be glad to reach out to you. We'll get your contact information. We collect our $100 payment up front, and we're glad to get that done. Let's see here. So that is that. So thank you so very, very much for everyone coming out today. And y'all have a great evening, and we're glad to be here to help you out. And thank you for attending again. Bye now.